This is Nick Nielsen, Mad Scientist of Muscle, and what I've got for you today here is a review of the DAV bench from Trainnox. Now, what this is basically a multi-function home gym bench. Now, what you'll find with a lot of home gym benches is that sometimes they try to do too much, and the things that they try and do too much of, they don't do very well. Now, there are a few issues that I come up with this bench, but for the most part, I am happy with how this bench operates and how it functions, and the exercise ranges that I can do with it, including a few things that literally you won't find on any other bench, which allows me to do things that you pretty much won't be able to do anywhere else. So I'll show you those, and I'm kind of going to run through some of the pluses and the minuses as I've discovered as I've been working through and working with this bench. Now, overall, about 75 pounds. It's a solid bench. It's very well built. This thing is solid. You're not going to fall apart when you're doing this. Personally, was loading up heavy weight on here, doing regular bench pressing, just to see how much this would hold. I didn't have any issues. There was no play in there. There was no worry about this thing collapsing under me. Now, one of the standout new features that you'll find in this bench is this angled preacher pad. Now, what I'm going to do here is pop this out and give you kind of a close-up of what exactly that looks like. So, what you can see here is instead of being just a flat, straight pad, these are set at an 82-degree angle. So, 82.1 to be exactly precise. So what this does is allows you to externally rotate a little bit more at the shoulder, which I find, for myself at least anyways, I got better supination, I got better action on the biceps when doing the preach curl exercise. Now, this is what it looks like on the front. You can see the two pads here. Here's what it looks like on the back. Now, you'll notice there are numbers here. I've got these set to the innermost setting. You can actually turn these little dials here, basically the knobs, pop these out of the back and move the pads to any of these three settings. So if you have wider shoulders or if you find you want the pads to be a little further apart, you can very easily adjust those and pop those out. For me personally, I found the innermost pad setting to be the best one. Now, here's what it looks like when you're doing preacher curl. And another quick thing, you want to make sure that these rounded parts are at the top, because if they're not, they're going to dig right into here. So when you're doing the exercise, this is exactly what it looks like. You're bringing your chest right into here, you're bringing your arms right over top of here, and then this allows you to do a preacher curl. Now normally when you're doing preacher curls on a flat pad, your shoulders are angled in. On this pad, it allows you to angle your shoulders a little bit out and then perform the exercise. Now, one thing I forgot is you also want to make sure that this is set either set here or basically fully removed, because at the bottom it's going to contact. So there are some settings you need to be aware of as you're using this. I found setting this just on the furthest setting, it actually was the setting I needed for leg curls, and it kept the pad far enough away that I didn't need to fully remove it. So I could do the exercise. It comes close, mind you, but it doesn't require that I take it completely off. So you can see with the arms angled out a bit, you get a little bit of external rotation and you get good action on the biceps as you're doing the exercise. And then you just do it basically as normal. Now, you can also use an easy curl bar for this. And I'll show you that real quick here as well, because I have pretty much every kind of bar you could even hope to imagine. Now, even with those pads angled out, you're going to be just fine on using the easy curl bar. Now, one of the coolest things about using the bench like this is fully adjustable. What I like to do is use this for a seated dumbbell shoulder press. So what I'll do, and I do this with a regular preacher bench as well, sit facing away here, and then this goes right into the back just below the shoulder blades. So you're actually able to anchor your feet down and then lean against this and then do your shoulder press. So that actually allows you freedom of movement in your scapula. It allows you to get that proper arch that you're not getting with a fully upright vertical bench when you're doing any sort of seated dumbbell shoulder press. So for me personally, I find this to be a great feature of this bench. Now, one of the coolest alternative uses that I found for this angled preacher bench attachment is actually doing incline dumbbell bench press. So what I've done here is turn the pads, instead of facing that way, they're facing towards the bench. This actually allows you to sit on the bench and then use this like an incline bench. So you sit right here, and then you can actually get your shoulders back and then get that perfect line of pull as you're doing an incline dumbbell press. So just like that, allows you to do pretty much a perfect position incline dumbbell bench press, similar to like a parallel arch bench kind of concept. One thing you do want to be aware of, since this is technically not made for that purpose, don't go too heavy with that kind of training. Make sure you're sticking to lighter to moderate weights and really going for feel. That's going to give you the best results for this type of exercise anyway, not piling on the weight and really going for power. The incline can really be kind of overwhelmed by the front delts and the triceps if you try to go too heavy and shorten the range of motion. So what you want to do here is go full range of motion, lighter to moderate weight, and higher to moderate rep ranges. Next, I wanted to give you kind of a close-up view of the leg attachments here. Now, this gives you the option to do leg extensions and leg curls. Now, when you're doing these, first thing I noticed is this pad is set a little bit higher. So you actually want to raise the seat up, basically one notch to the number 2 setting on here. This flattens it out, so it actually is much easier on the knees when you're doing the exercise, leg extensions and leg curls. Now, it's got one post here. This is actually adjustable. It has a sleeve where you can use an Olympics plate, or you can pull that off and use a standard size plate, so a 1 inch or a 2 inch. Whatever plates you have, this is going to be able to accommodate it. That's a really nice feature that I'm seeing in a lot of home gym equipment pieces these days, and I think it's a very good idea to give you those options. Now, one of the things that could really be improved on this, especially for the leg extension piece, is this part right here is not adjustable. To me, that's a big miss, because when you're doing something like a leg curl or a leg extension, the leg curl is adjustable, but the leg extension in particular, you do want it to be adjustable. Now, this has a pin right here, so basically it's locked in right there. You got to pull that pin out, not like a hand grenade, but this frees it up so that this piece then moves freely. Now, when you're doing a leg curl, leg extension, you want to be sure that your knee joint aligns with the pivot point here. So when you're doing the exercise, you want to make sure, let's see if I can give you a good view here, that this post aligns right with the knee joint. So when you're doing it, that's going to give you the best action at the knee. Now, you can see right here, this, for my leg size, is almost right. Now, one of the things with just about any piece of home gym equipment for legs, whether it's a standalone leg curl, leg extension, when you add it onto a regular bench that's kind of an add-on, it's never going to be perfect. And I'll tell you that right now. It's going to be ranging from terrible to pretty good. And this, actually, when you start adding some weight on, I found it to be pretty good. So I have no complaints about that. You're getting what you pay for in terms of you're getting a whole setup here. If you train in a home gym, this will give you a good option as far as working your quads, working your hamstrings. So like I said, nothing is going to be perfect. No piece that I've ever tested has been perfect. Even some big commercial pieces are knee wreckers. This is actually not so bad. It's not as bad as some of the commercial pieces that I've tested out that I really didn't like. So with that glowing review, let's go to the leg curl part of it here. Now, this is adjustable, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4 different positions. I actually found for my legs, I needed this to be in the furthest position. The pad does take a minute to adjust, so it's not like, it's not super like boom, pop, 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 and away you go. it does take a little bit of a spinning and unspinning, but you can set it all the way down to here, and it's just a post that slides in, and you lock that back in. And now, if you've got really, I mean, my legs aren't super long, but if you've got really long legs, you may not have enough room here to do the proper leg curl. So you might find that it's not adjustable enough for your particular physiology or your mechanics. So, but again, that's something that you're going to run into with almost any home gym bench. This, I think, covers the majority of what people are going to be looking for, or what you're probably going to need when you're doing the exercises. So overall, I think the leg attachments are, pretty good. And for a home gym piece that covers all of these different functions, that's actually a good thing. So now, if you wanted to remove this from here, you can actually do that relatively easily. This spins off and rolls across the floor like a meatball on top of spaghetti. But this comes right out. So this can actually, this does not here. So you're gonna need to be aware of that when you're doing other exercises, but it does give you the option to remove that whole section very quickly and very easily, which to me, that's a very good thing. So, it gives you a lot of range in terms of what you want to do with the bench. Now, in terms of quality, this padding is nice and thick. This has a little angle down here, a little angle down here, so it doesn't drop you too much into that dip right here. Now, what you can do here, if you want to set it to incline or decline, is very simple. This peg slides in, hooks in, raises up, hooks in, raises up, hooks in, and all the way up to a full 90-degree bench positioning. So this goes from the full straight up bench positioning, which I'll be honest with you, I don't like that position on literally any bench that I've ever tried. I don't find the 90-degree position for shoulder pressing to be very good, essentially. So no knock on this bench. I don't like it on any bench, but this does give you the option to do that. For example, maybe you want to do some spider curls, like so. You'd have to stand up on something to do that, but you could potentially do spider curls on this 90-degree setting. Now, get 90, 60, 45, 30 flat, and then it allows you the capability of going to a decline here. So all the way down, fold that under, and then you have a decline. Now, the only issue with the decline here is you can't actually do any sort of decline presses. So the bench does decline, but there's no practical way to actually do any sort of decline work. So the seat does tip up, and this seat is fully adjustable as well. It's got 4 different positions. As you can see, this gives you that straight decline, but, and I'll pull this pad off here, give you a better idea. If you were trying to do any sort of decline work, you would have to stick your knees under here, and that's just going to be a knee breaker. So honestly, the capability of going to a decline, I like that, but you're going to have to play with exercises. I'm going to show you a few exercises you can do on the decline, but it kind of mimics an incline. So, there are options. Having the ability to decline does open up a few more options for you, but not in terms of decline pressing or flies or sit-ups. Now, set it to flat here. And honestly, one thing I do like about this a lot is it writes, there's numbers right here telling you exactly where to set this. So, you're not going to get confused with multiple positionings here. Like there's some benches that have like a ton of these little holes in there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way like 8 different settings. Most people are not going to need that many settings. So you've got 0, 30, 45, 60, and 90. That's going to do the trick for the vast majority of the exercises you're ever going to want to do with an incline flat bench kind of thing. So set it back to here. Now what you'll notice, and what I've noticed, is even on the 0, this is not actually 0. So I would say, I don't have a level, I don't have a protractor here, but this does kind of give you a little bit of an upwards angle here. Even though this says 0, it's not fully 0. It's about 4 to 5 degrees up at an angle here. Not a big deal, but it is something to be aware of if you require something that is flat. In terms of overall strength though, like I said, this thing is rock solid. This thing is not going to fold in on you. If you're looking for a good bench that is solidly built, this is a good solidly built bench. So if you want to move this bench around, it's going to be awkward to grab and pick up and carry. What you're going to do here is grab this handle on the end, roll around on the wheels on the end. So, you know, you're not going to really be able to practically pick this up and carry, basically because of how this section of it works. Like, you pick it up, you can't pick it up because the seats fold up. So having the wheels, having the handle, that's the practical value of the setup here.
I'm going to run through some of the exercise I tested with this bench. This is a flat dumbbell bench press. Now, as you can see, the way I arranged it is I picked up the dumbbells from the side, set them on my lap, and then lied back to basically do the exercise. Now, this is a little bit different than you normally do in a regular flat bench. Next, it was the incline dumbbell bench press. This I found to be a bit more awkward because of the height of the bench. So your feet kind of are reaching for where to put them. Now, when I was doing this one, putting my feet flat on the bench just worked okay. It gave you a little bit more stability than the alternative, which I'm going to show you here as well. So what I did is I also tried it putting my feet up on the leg extension pads here, which put my body in a bit better position, but it was a little bit more unstable. So that's something you want to keep in mind if you're doing the exercise on this bench with your feet up on that leg pad. Now, when doing dumbbell flies, and this is something you can do with presses as well, I switched over to feet up on the bench. Now, flies, obviously a lighter exercise, so it's not as critical having, you know, stability for dumbbell press or for doing leg drive if you're doing heavy dumbbell bench press. So that's what I opted for that. Now, another option here is to use the decline aspect of the bench to kick it up and do incline on a decline face dumbbell bench press, and that worked quite well. Now, what I did like about this bench for dumbbell rows was the height. Really gives you a full range of motion at this. You can reach down and really dig into the stretch of the exercise. Pick up one end, roll the dumbbell over, do your reps on the other side. So again, the bench height on this was actually very, very beneficial as far as doing a rowing exercise. Now, I also, because of the height of the bench, opted to do seal rows with this, the 2 dumbbell rows. This is really good for doing greater range of motion. So this is an exercise that I actually can't stand, is a vertical back dumbbell shoulder press. Not a fan of this position, not just in this bench, but literally in any bench. I'm not liking the vertical position, but you can do it. So this is the leg curl attachment looks like as you're doing the leg curl exercise. It is effective, and I found it to actually be a pretty good version of the leg curl for a home gym bench like this. This is the leg extension. As I mentioned earlier, normally these are tough to get a good one on, but this is actually pretty decent as far as the leg extension goes, and I found it to be a good option. So this is where the 82-degree out pad on the preacher curl works. So your arms are a little bit angled outwards, which is a very natural position for the shoulders to be in as you're doing the exercise. Found this to be a very beneficial variation of it. Now, I set that pad all the way down to the bottom here so that I could do concentration curls. So it puts your body in that leaned over position and getting the full stretch at the bottom, which is basically no tension, and then curling up against a brace to get full maximum contraction at the top. And this is also good for easy curl bar curls. I found this to be, even with the 82 degrees, to be very effective with the pads set inwards as much as you can go. Now this is a beautiful version of the seated dumbbell shoulder press for your shoulders. Having your back into the preacher pad like this is excellent for allowing better positioning for the exercise. Now this is where this pad, you can flip it around backwards and do an incline dumbbell bench press. This I found to be actually much better than using the actual inclined surface of the bench for incline presses. Really gets into the upper chest nicely.
So now that you've seen the exercises and kind of the ins and outs of using this bench with those exercises, I want to give you just kind of like a final rundown on my thoughts on the DAV bench from Trainnox. Now, overall, I think it's a good bench. I think it's got a lot of really good features to it, and the durability and the solidity of the bench itself is very good. And you're not going to break this thing. I wouldn't recommend you try to break the thing, but you're not going to use this with normal wear and tear. You're not going to run into any issues in terms of durability. Now, there are, as I mentioned through here, a few bugs that I would consider, bugs that could be improved on this. One of the biggest things what you're going to notice here is I'm about 5'10". When I use this bench for a bench press, and you can see when I was doing the dumbbell bench press, my feet were not really sitting very solidly on the floor. And that's one of the biggest things to me that a bench should be. This is a tall bench, so it's good for some things like the seal rows or one of them dumbbell rows. It's going to give you a good range of motion. But if you don't have really long legs, you may have a harder time actually getting your feet on the floor to stabilize yourself when you're doing bench press, which is why I went to the feet up dumbbell flies when I was doing that exercise. So that's something to be aware of. Overall, good quality bench, good quality product. The materials are solid, and the bench itself is absolutely functional, and it's got some features on here, such as this preacher pad, that you're really not going to find anywhere else, and some things that really allow you to maximize your training depending on which exercises you're doing. But overall, it is a good product, and it's going to allow you to do a lot of different things very safely and very effectively in a home gym situation.